Hello, this is April 11th, 2018. I hope everybody has their taxes done. You got 4 days unless you filed for an extension already, but you might want to take care of that in the next 4 days. People joining in right away here. Angela was first tonight. Congratulations, Angela. Kelly and Lavonda at the same time. Andrea, Jimmy, Kimber, how are you doing tonight? Of course, we're going to be talking about a little bit anyway about my interview with you. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Mikayla's case for this Friday toward the end of the program, Kimber, if you're wondering. Jimmy, hello. Kimber, hey, how's everybody doing? I'm doing great. Not to rub it in, but it has been absolutely. We got some rain yesterday. It stormed pretty hard, but it was beautiful here today. Low 70s, just perfect. Where it seems like the rest of the United States is in a new ice age. Charlie, what's up? Stephanie, you remembered that it was Wednesday. Congratulations. Kimber, you have strep throat. I think I saw you post that earlier today. I'm sorry to hear about that. That's horrible. That is horrible. I hate sore throats. They're the worst. And yes, Andrea, Stephanie is here. She is. Lois, how are you doing? I sent your book out yesterday, Lois, from the contest that you won last week. So I hope you get it. I don't know if it would have gotten there today, but you should get it soon. And Christy and Angela says that it's snow Monday, 70 today. It's crazy, Angela. It's crazy. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to tell you about all the weather stuff. Stephanie, LOL, ugh, I did. You two stop it. Okay, Stephanie, we'll stop it for today. How about that? We'll stop it for today. Dorothy, welcome. Hope you're doing well. Lois, you're welcome. Got a good program for you tonight. As I already mentioned, as I usually do, we're going to talk about the disappearance of Mikelle Biggs at the end of this program. After we get through the regular things that we do, take questions. I got some recent true crime news for all of you. Want to do a little business. Dee Dee and her Wonder Woman picture. That's just stands out to me, Dee Dee. How are you doing tonight? I hope you're doing well. Just some take care of a few housekeeping things. All of you know that I'm fairly responsive on various social media, specifically, I guess, Facebook, but other places too. If you send me any messages or have a comment for me or want me to look up something. However, this Saturday, I'm going to be playing in a disc golf tournament up in Floral Park, or Floral City, but it's called Floral Park. About an hour and 40 minutes north of here. So on Saturday, I'm going to be out of communication probably until the late evening. It's only a one-day tournament, but it's 2 rounds. I don't have to play on Sunday. But on Saturday, if you're wondering where I am, that's where I will be, because I know a lot of people are used to me emailing back and forth, listeners, guests, all sorts of different people. So I just wanted to give you all a heads up on that. Hello, Dana. Speaking of disc golf, there's Dana. Hope you're doing well, Dana. I don't know if you're playing. I don't know if you're going up to Floral City this weekend or not. I'm not sure. I don't know if I saw your name on the list or not. And Joyce, I hope you're doing well. Oh, that's your club's tournament. That's your club's tournament. I didn't know you were a member of that club up there. This is inside disc golf talk. We got to get away from this, Dana. I didn't know that. Okay. I didn't know that, Dana, so we'll have to move on from that. All right, now that I know, I know. And hello, all. Joyce says, and hello to Ed. So on Saturday, going to be a little busy, but I will be sure to catch up with everything on Saturday evening. I hope I play well. I hope I'm in a good mood on Saturday evening. Something else, New York State Missing Persons Day was on Saturday, and I have been told that Unfound at some point got mentioned there. I don't know. I of course, wasn't there. If anybody can verify that for me, I'd be interested to know that. Of course, had a ceremony and a lot of people were recognized there. And of course, you all know that Mary Lyle and I are close. I hope to talk to her soon again, but I thought I'd give her some days to unwind because she puts a lot of work into putting that day together. She is like the master of ceremonies. She started it. So I'm going to give her a little couple days to unwind before we talk. But that would be I'd be interested to know that. And I need to give a shout out to a former guest, a recent guest on this program, Fran Masucci, who was at the New York Missing Persons Day. In fact, I kind of, frankly, Fran had never heard of Mary Lyle before, didn't know what she was doing in the state of New York. So I put those two together, and I know they got to meet for the first time on Saturday. And Fran, just from being there for one day, has introduced me to some other families who have missing people, and I've talked to a couple of them in the last couple days. So I need to give a shout out to Fran Masucci. Of course, her case was just like 3 weeks ago. Her father disappeared in 1974, Nicholas Masucci. She was a guest on the program, and I think you're going to be hearing a lot from Fran in the upcoming months, if not years. She is certainly set on changing the environment, at least in New Jersey, if not elsewhere, regarding missing persons cases. So I look forward to what she's doing, and I want to give a shout out to her for introducing to me some of these people that I've talked to in the last couple of days. Thank you, Fran. And I also need to give a shout out to a young woman who I know I mentioned, but maybe I don't mention it enough, and that is the other person who helps me find people to talk to for Unfound, and that is Emily. She was with her family for a little while in Arkansas, but she was still trying to get some things done there. But now she's back in Texas. But she's been doing some great work as well, finding once again some families on the Facebook elsewhere, and she's been doing a lot of great work. And I know that the families who have gotten to know her just by her contacting them, she keeps in contact with them, they all have a lot of nice things to say about her. And that's why she's been doing this for the program for about a year now. It seems like yesterday that she first contacted me about helping with the program. And I said, okay, let's see what you can do, Emily. And here we are a year later. And I'm very fortunate to have her. I call her an assistant, but we've become friends. We talk almost every day, even though she has a job that she does, a regular job. And I appreciate, what she continues to do and the way she does her business. I think that she has been a real asset to Unfound. So I don't know if she's in here tonight or not, but I need to mention her as well. Let's take a question. Hello, Taj. I have to admit, is it Tajlon? Is that how you say your name? I apologize, Tajlon, if that's not how you pronounce it. That is not a name that is familiar to me. I've seen you in here before, and I think I've seen you in the group, but I don't know if I've tried to pronounce your name before, so I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Tajlon, welcome to the group tonight. Pleasure to see you in here. Let me just do something here real quick, and I'm going to take the first question. I have some really good questions tonight. Stephanie, I'm going to start with yours. It seemed to get, we've already had some back and forth in the group about this topic, but maybe I need to give, I think I should give my opinion on it as well. And the question was why do some families shy away from, getting any media attention? Why is it that, for example, if it's myself or Emily contact people, families, and they don't get back to us? There's a lot of reasons. And I think that, Kimber, I know that you had responded to Stephanie's original question. I thought you brought up some excellent points, being that you've been living this for almost 20 years. And a lot of some of the other people who commented, I thought, brought up, there were a lot of different reasons that have already been mentioned in the group. And if you're not a member of the Unfound podcast discussion group, you should be in there. This came up early on in Unfound's existence. In fact, it came up in my conversation with Kelly Murphy. And speaking of which, I mean, not to bring this up necessarily, but I'm not sure the Project Jason exists anymore. So in September 2016, when I talked to Kelly, this topic came up because what I had told her was that, I run across so many websites that are reserved for a missing persons case, and you get there, and it's obvious they're not being managed anymore. Either the information hasn't been updated in years, or you go there and it's been the site has been hijacked, I don't know, by the Russians or the Chinese. It's like, some different language. I asked her about that, and she said that just after a while, people they get burnt out. It happens, even if it's a son or daughter. After a while, they start thinking, well, we're not making any progress. The police aren't getting in contact with us. We think we know a suspect, and the cops aren't going to talk to the guy. I think it's very probably easy for us on the outside who haven't had this happen to us to say, well, this would be an obsession. This would be an obsession for the rest of our lives. And it's just not necessarily the case. I'm not saying that people don't get obsessed and stay obsessed their whole lives, but not everybody. Not everybody. And I think it's for a variety of reasons. As I think there was a recent guest that's brought this up that, I think it might have been Deborah Murray and the disappearance of her daughter, Mandy Stokes, is that, she has other children. In fact, one who is a suspect in Mandy's disappearance. Maybe it wasn't her, but I'm thinking it was. That, she has to be a mother to her other children. And, if she or any other parent would continue to obsess on the disappearance of one child, and you have 3 or 4 other kids, how do those, completely, to the point of ignoring these other kids, what kind of life are those children going to have? There are a lot of different reasons. I think mainly where it starts is when they don't see any progress being made. I think that's just human nature in anything, whether it's in the missing persons community or anything else in life. If you see progress being made in what you're doing, then you continue to do it. If you don't see progress being made in something, then you tend to start thinking it's a waste of time, or you'd rather do something else. And I think that happens. But I think it starts as that. And then I think different people handle it in different ways. And I think somebody even brought up, well, it could be that, even within a family, they have different opinions on what happened. Being that I just, brought up Deborah Murray, that's a perfect example. And that does, if a family is not together on what they believe happened, then that can split it, especially if it's a woman, a grown woman, they say a 30-year-old who disappeared, and it's, the husband that's a suspect. Well, I can tell you, some people are going to think the husband did it and some aren't. And, it's going to tend to fracture families. So, there's so many dynamics regarding this, dynamics that you do not run into in any sort of other type of mystery or crime on the earth. Once again, this all goes back to the point of not knowing what happened. Not having a body, not being able to have some sort of ceremony or anything like that, that I think it all comes back to that as well. It's the progress and then not knowing, because we as humans, the way our minds work, we're very curious people. We're very curious animals. We want answers. And when we can't get answers, it's not good for our psyche. It's just not. Whether it's in missing persons cases or anything else. I need to welcome some other people in tonight. Sherelle, welcome. Sarah, Claudia, thank you for joining tonight. Kimber says, I personally can't obsess for my own mental health. Kimber also says, I feel that's very accurate. I've felt defeated many times. Kimber, it's perfectly natural. And so Stephanie says, so lots of being discouraged. Yes, I think. Kimber, once again, she is my guest for this Friday. She has experienced it firsthand for almost 20 years. I have not experienced it firsthand. All I've done is talk to a lot of people about it. And that's what I hear. Every case is different. There's a different set of facts, different areas of the country, but a lot of frustration that can be very discouraging, that becomes discouragement. So, Stephanie, it's a great question. I think that you got a lot of good answers in the group already, and that's what I would have to add on top of it, because I can tell you, when I first started doing the program, it was a big question to me. Once again, that's why I asked Kelly Murphy that question. How is it that these families start these websites and then they just let them go, and they're 10 years old, 15 years old, haven't been updated, there's wrong information on it. And that's why. Now I know. And I'd like to think, even though I host the program and I talk to a lot of people, I'd like to think that I'm learning doing these programs, just I hope like all of you are learning. I've said many times, we're all in this together. I just happen to be the guy with the microphone. I'm learning, and I hope you're learning. And I know that I've learned a bunch, and I hope that not just listening to these cases, taking interest in them, trying to solve them, but I hope that my listeners learn, what it's like, and they've learned more about the missing persons community and cases. This is as much a teaching program as it is a trying to solve a mystery program. Absolutely. It is certainly not an entertainment program. Barbara says, I remember one family member who was interviewed, and I think some others in her family did not like the case was being brought up again. Probably, Barbara. I can't think of it. Being that I brought up Deborah Murray, and I'm not speaking out of school because she said this in her interview, I think that she was very forthright in saying some of her other kids wished that she'd let it go. She said that. So every person is different. But when it comes to not getting answers and not seeing progress, I think that a large majority of humans react the same way. They become discouraged and they start to question what they're doing, I think. So, Stephanie, thank you for the question. Let's do a little business, and then I'll take another question. Just want to remind you, I'm working on book number 3. And in fact, I spent most of Saturday working on it. Hope to have it done in the next few days, maybe before... if I don't get it done before Saturday, I hope volume 3 is going to be done on Sunday. We got these. Of course, for some of you, I just, like for example, Lois, this is what she got for free for answering a question from last week's program. That's volume 2. Sorry to cover you up there, Josh. And then the guests of these cases have gotten books too. So you can check those out on Amazon.com. Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3 is coming shortly. The shirts, you see I'm wearing my black Unfound shirt. This is also another shirt with all of the first-year cases on the back. That's what we call Season 1. For those of you that don't know, that's between when Unfound started to the end of July of 2017. And so Season 2 starts at the beginning of August of 2017. I think the first case for year number 2 is Kent Jacobs. And then we have Patreon and PayPal. I continue to thank all of you for your contributions. You make it possible for some of the guests, all of the guests on Unfound, to receive a shirt and other things that I've been able to provide for them. One or two of them and asked for maybe an extra one, and I've done that. You make that all possible. With their Patreon and PayPal contributions. I'm not vacationing in Tahiti. I am not, starting a growth fund or anything like that. I take those funds and I try to do with them what I can. And I think these shirts are a good thing that people can wear to events, to a missing persons day, or anywhere. They go out to a trivia night, they can wear the shirt. People are going to wonder, they're going to see it, they're going to wonder what's that about. They can start a conversation about their missing loved ones. It's a very easy way to do that. And that's, I thought it would be a good idea. That's why I did it. I made those. So Patreon and PayPal make it possible. That's what it does. Let me read some things here. Lori, sorry, just joined on. Do you ever wonder if, okay, there's a question here. We're missing people. Okay, I'll get to that, Lori. I will answer that. Hold on. Jill, welcome. And Shelly, welcome to you as well. And then finally, we got the playing cards. Unfound playing cards. I can never get this camera thing right, honestly. So we got, here's Linda K. Carroll on the 10 of clubs. We have Teresa Butler, who will be covered in, man, I have such a hard time with this. Teresa Butler, the 6 of clubs, who will be covered in volume 3. And then Rebecca Gary, who also coincidentally is going to be covered in volume 3 as well, the 4th Spade. So you can go to makeplayingcards.com/sell/unfound podcast to find those. And I need to work on those more. I keep saying that. I wish I had more hours in a day and days in the week. Hello back to you, Shelly. Love the playing card idea. Thank you, Shelly. That's very kind. That's very kind. So we got the business out of the way. Lori, I will take your question right now. Sorry, just joined on. Do you ever wonder if any missing people might be in the witness protection program? I'm not sure how families are notified. I have to think that happens very, very rarely, Lori. I have no statistics. I have never really read a lot on the topic. But to get into the witness protection program, a person actually has to my knowledge, testify against somebody in some big case, something like that. And at least in the cases that I've covered, I think Lola Catherine Fry, which is a case that's also going to be in volume 3, she was involved in a lawsuit. She disappeared right before the case was to take place. But it was a civil case. It wasn't a criminal case. So I don't know if she'd ever get witness protection for something like that. I think that happens a lot less than we think. I think. In fact, even publicly, even reading all the news that I do, I can't remember reading about a case where somebody got put in the witness protection program. I don't think that the witness protection program in the United States is like that big. I mean, you really have to you really have to convict a lot of people, I believe, to get into the witness protection program. So, Lori, if there's ever a case that comes along that I think that it might be a possibility, we will certainly talk about it. Absolutely, 100%. I just don't think we've had it yet, and I have not read any cases where that has ever struck me as being a possibility. And I also don't think, being that NamUs is a government organization, it's namus.gov, would somebody be able to be on the witness protection program and then be on their site? I don't know how all of that exactly works. But I think that we get, with the witness protection program, we start thinking of the reason I think the average American knows about it is because of Hollywood. There's been movies made about it. And I just think that it's a little, we overrate it as to how much it really happens. Just an opinion, though. I don't know that for a fact. Jennifer, I have the issue when live as well. It's harder. I have that issue when live. Okay, Jennifer. I have that issue when live as well. It's harder than it looks. Oh, you're talking about me trying to manage the camera. I got you, Jennifer. Yeah. It's like, what am I doing? I don't know where to. I get so confused, and I like to think I'm a smart guy. Maybe I'm not. So, Jennifer, thank you. I'm glad somebody else is suffering the same thing that I do when it comes to working with a camera. Sarah, once you hit that brick wall and no new info and nowhere to look for any, it's so disheartening that you can't let go. So you can go back and look at the web pages to review the info again for your own sake, but not totally devote your whole life to searching for what happened. Sometimes it's all you can do. It's like a survival mode. I agree. I agree. Sarah, good point. I think they make, I think you hit it right there on the head. Nicely done. Yeah. Let's go to a little news that occurred within the last week. Buckskin Girl. It was a national story. I'm going to guess at least some of you saw it. Did I post it in the group? I think I did. Maybe I didn't. So many places. But Buckskin Girl is a girl that was found in 1981 in Ohio. And it's taken, what would that be, 37 years for her to be identified. And they did it through, of course, as we would suspect, using DNA and the rest. Charlie says I saw that. That's amazing. It is amazing, Charlie. I agree with you. Sure, I have it. Okay, I'm going to answer that. Okay, yeah, it is amazing news, Dorothy. And Sherelle, I will try to get to your question. The interesting thing maybe the interesting and the frustrating thing about that case is that being that I do a missing persons program, I don't do an unidentified persons program. I was trying to go back and see what the actual facts were. Oh, by the way, okay, so she was found in Ohio. Turns out they identified her as Marcia King, Marcia King of Arkansas. And she was found once again in Ohio. Her body was found in Ohio in 1981. She had been murdered. 1981, she had been murdered. No idea what she was doing there now that they know who she is. And the killer, the last 37 years, has never been caught. So I'm going to guess it's a he. He is still out there. Maybe he's dead by now. Who knows what happened? Maybe he got caught committing another crime. They just don't know it's him. The problem I have, it's great. It's a great story, and I hope the King family, it's good that they now know where she ended up, even though she is not with us anymore. The frustrating thing is, as doing a missing persons program, I was trying to find out what the actual facts were of Marcia's disappearance and couldn't find anything. I don't know why, what happened. Was she out? How she got from Arkansas to Ohio, what was going on in her life at the time when she disappeared from Arkansas, on and on and on. I can't find that anywhere, and that can be very frustrating to me because I believe that's how I learn more about cases. I want to hear what the original case read like, so then I can apply it to all of the cases that I read, including the ones that we cover on Unfound. That's a little frustrating to me. And she's not in Charlie Project, and she's not in NamUs. Maybe that on NamUs at least she got taken off there already. I don't know. I don't know. But it would be nice to know what the facts of Marcia's disappearance going way back to whenever she did disappear, whatever her disappearance date was from Arkansas. I'd like to know. So if anybody finds out anything, Lois says she was never reported missing. Well, that would certainly solve all that. Is that right? I looked around for that today, and I did not see that, Lois. Okay. Well, all right then. Well, then, but it brings up now that I know that, Charlie says the family tried to report her missing, but allegedly police wouldn't take the report. Okay. All right. Well, now I know those things. I guess the other part of it is that one of the good things, being that she wasn't reported missing, so nobody knew she was missing outside of, I guess, her immediate family. Maybe they didn't think she was missing. Maybe they thought that she just moved to another town and didn't want to talk to them anymore. I guess that's possible. Charlie says you saw that information on one of the Facebook group pages. Okay. That we have to accept something when it comes to missing persons cases, especially ones that are covered well. that I'll just give you an example because it's a case that I've not covered on Unfound, and I probably will never cover it, and that is Maura Murray. Because that case is so well known, I can be pretty sure that her remains have not been discovered, and we just don't know that it's her. All right. I suppose we could maybe say that about Jennifer Kessie's disappearance. I think we could say that about Brian Schaefer's disappearance, being that my friend Nick just started his podcast about that disappearance. These very, very well-known cases, the odds of those victims' remains being out there in some coroner's office and not being identified are very, very low. Whereas now that Charlie and Lois are saying this, it makes sense then that it's no wonder the remains weren't identified for 37 years because nobody knew she was missing. I guess now we know why those remains weren't identified a lot earlier, being the DNA has been around since the mid 1990s, simply because nobody knew she was missing. And that's one of the reasons Unfound exists. We raise the profile of all these missing cases. So it may be in some of these cases, if remains of somebody is out there, say it'll ring a bell. Hey, when I heard that on Unfound last Friday, that reminds me of an unidentified remains I read about a couple weeks ago. It's these types of things that we can make happen. So Dorothy said she was a traveling type between family, step-family on her own. Yes, Dorothy. Well, I'm glad, you guys are certainly on this. I tried to do as much as I could. I have a lot of other things going on, but I wanted to talk about it. And I appreciate all of you being so on top of this and being able to answer some of these questions for me. I appreciate it. I will never say that I know the most about some of these things. So in raising, with Unfound, we're trying to raise the profile of all these cases. So once again, people do know that people are missing. And if a missing persons report has been lost, or it's never been found, or it's, there was the police department moved 3 times and it ended up in some filing cabinet at the bottom. At least we get around that by raising the profile of these missing people that these families that I talk to and their family members who are missing. And then that'll ring the bell, turn on the light for somebody out there. Because it's, I guess, kind of clear to me now that in Marcia King's case, nobody did that. They weren't able to do it. No police report, no missing persons report. The family thought she just moved away, on and on and on. Yeah, the DNA, Joyce says DNA was the key. Absolutely. And no podcast in the 1980s, Charlie. That is certainly true as well. That is true. Wayne, Anthony's in here tonight. Welcome, Anthony. Good to see you tonight. I hope you're doing well. I think that it was Sherelle. Let me make sure I got her name right. I think Sherelle asked me if any people have been found alive that Unfound is featured. No. In fact, I have to admit, we've covered all these cases. I don't think any of these people have been found yet. I'm pretty sure none of them have. I am pretty sure that I would know about that. So we're doing our best, Sherelle. All we can do is our best, and hopefully one of these days, and an Unfound doesn't necessarily have to even have anything to do with it, but I hope these guests that I've had on the program do get answers. But the simple answer to your question is no. No, not yet. We're going to keep working at it, though. We're not going to stop. We're going to keep working at it. Let's go to another question. So that was Buckskin Girl. If you aren't familiar, of course, some of the Lois, Dorothy, and a couple other people are very familiar with this story now. If you haven't heard about it, I would urge you to check it out. Buckskin Girl. Marcia King was found. Her remains were found. She was strangled, by the way. It's a murder, and the killer has never been caught. So let me take another question. Becca had asked me before the program started, would I ever consider doing a podcast, like a series on just one case? Kind of like, once again, like my friend Nick, who just started the podcast Come Back, which is about the disappearance of Brian Schaefer. I don't know how many episodes that's going to be. I forget. I know he told me, but I forget. I think I would. If Beck, I don't know if Beck is in here or not. If she is, I hope she chimes in to hear me answer this question. If not, she can catch it on YouTube after. I mean, given everything that I'm doing already, it would be very difficult to do. Okay, so from me just being a human, and there's only 24 hours a day and 7 days of the week, that would not be realistically possible at this time. Not possible. Okay. Becca, there you go. Let me shut the air conditioning off. The air conditioning comes on, you can't hear me. It's right up here to the left. There you are, Becca. Okay, Becca, great. Okay. If I were to do one, I would have to say that I have to tell you that I have one picked out that I would do. It's a fairly known one, but the reason I would do it is not because it's fairly well known. I would do it because I've discovered in talking to this family member who I've talked to a couple times now, that there is an entirely different side to the story. Okay, that's all I can say, because you know that I am, the conversations I have with family members are confidential. Okay, the only thing that is official is what we do on an interview. I can't tell you who this person is. I can't tell you what the case is. But there is a person I've talked to a few times, a well-known case. I would love to cover the other side of it. A lot of people know the story, and they're pretty set in their ways. I've discovered that there's a whole other part to the story, but I could never do it in one episode of Unfound. I mean, it would be like an 8-hour episode or something like that, and that's not really what I want to do. And the other thing is, just to be honest with you, I'm not sure I have complete permission to tell this other story at this point. Okay? Stephanie says, great, another cryptic case teaser. I'm not trying to be catty here or be jokey or mysterious on any purpose. I am not doing that. The reason I can't say anymore is because I just can't do it. I can't say. I just can't. I can't. But I will tell you that there's a case out there that's fairly well known. Everybody thinks they know what happened, and then I found out that maybe that is not exactly the case. There's a lot of things that were going on that are real, that are true. But the person I've talked to is not sure. She wants that side to get out. Okay? I'll just leave it at that. So, if I were to do a series, I suppose it could be something like that, break it up into like 45-minute episodes or something like that. All I can tell you this is if I were to cover it, it's going to be highly, highly controversial. Because I'm pretty sure that everybody is dead set. They already know what happened. So there's that. And I have to tell you, after looking over all the information this person gave me, us talking quite a few times, I'm not sure that that's the case. But I can only cover a case if the family permits me to do so. And I do not necessarily, I think, have all the permission yet to do what I'd like to do. That's just the way it goes. That's just the way Unfound is run. But other than that, I would like to, if we were, other than that particular case, I would like to take a series on a case that's not so well known. I think that I've mentioned maybe the case of Angela Westbury and Teresa Hickman, two girls who disappeared together back in the mid-'80s from Jacksonville, Florida. Very, very little information about the case. You can just go find it on Charlie Project or Name Us right now. 2 girls who disappeared. Very little information. I've actually been in contact with Angela Westbury's sisters, not recently. But that is a case that I would love to do a series on, simply because there's not a lot of information there. And I know that Joyce isn't here. This is another case where 2 young women disappear together. And I think it's a travesty that there isn't a lot of information out about this case. I don't know any more information than anybody else does, kind of right at this point. But that is a case that has caught my eye, and if I had a lot of time, but that's going to take a lot of off-internet work. This is going to have to be calling government agencies and things like that, because there is no information on the internet about this case. 0. You can look that one up. Angela Westbury, Teresa Hickman, they disappeared from Jacksonville, Florida. Allegedly, they went out on a boat with 2 guys, and the boat, nor they, never came back. You can check that one out. They might have been sex trafficked. We're just not sure. Charlie, Barbara says, I'm not the first one to say, but all the fine podcasts and blogs on missing persons could be a real gold mine if a detective wants to someday gather all the facts that are collected this way. I have no doubt that this will help them crack cases eventually. Barbara, I agree with you. I agree with you. You know, the way I go about Unfound, asking, you know, Kimber is in here. She knows I want to be thorough. I ask very direct questions, especially off the record before we even get to an interview situation. You know, that's what needs to be done in these cases. As you know, with my program, I don't take anything out of context. All of you in the episodes, you hear the interview as it happened, as it was recorded, except for mistakes that we make once in a while. But the conversations play out exactly as you hear them. And I believe in asking direct questions, thorough questions. And I believe that is the way to cover these cases. Absolutely. And I am so fortunate that all of the family members that I've had an opportunity to meet in the last year and a half, over a year and a half now, have respected the way I go about it and have answered all of my questions the way they have. I just can't thank them enough. That's why I think that when you come and listen to an episode of Unfound on any disappearance, I try to be the final word on that particular case. We're trying to get everything out there so people don't have to go anywhere else. They can just come to this program and know everything there is to know about a case. That's what I'm trying to do. And I appreciate the families who know what I'm trying to do and want to go along with it. Let's go to another piece of news. I'm not happy to talk about it, but I'm going to. And then Kimber, we're going to talk about Mikkelle's case for a little bit here, and we always do that at the end for the last 5 to 7 minutes. Have you heard that the Kardashians are getting into the true crime business? Have you heard that? It's true. The show is called, I found this at people.com. The show is going to be called Sisters Who Kill. And because they're sisters and, you know, they know all about it being sisters, it's Khloe Kardashian. I don't know the Kardashians. I've never watched their program. Charlie says, ugh, my feelings exactly. But Sisters Who Kill, and yes, Kimber, yes. Oh, good Lord, really? Yes, it's true. Yeah. And this... I just don't know what to say about this. You know how seriously I take this. You know it. And in fact, some of you know that I don't care for the tone that some other true crime shows use when they're covering, stuff that is as serious gets on the planet Earth. But when the Kardashians get involved in something, it automatically brings that thing down. All right, it becomes a caricature, it's a reality show, everything else, it's horrible. All right, these are not the kinds of people who should, I was thinking about it, 30 years ago, Unsolved Mysteries had Robert Stack 30 years later, we have the Kardashians. I don't think we're going in the right direction. I understand that some of these shows need people who are well known or famous for whatever reason. The Kardashians. So there you go. With that, it's called Sisters Who Kill, and I know that it's a little frustrating. That's all I could say. But you should also know, if any of you are, to move on from that, Oxygen, I guess, has 10 shows. I guess Oxygen is turning into a true crime channel like ID Discovery or whatever it's called. Kimberly says she's 45 minutes late. Don't worry about it. You can catch it all on YouTube a little later, Kimberly. Oxygen is turning into a true crime TV network, and they also have some shows that I've read about that, once again, I feel the same way about them that I feel about the Kardashians going to do their show. I'm not saying I feel that way about all of them, but if you go check the lineup out, the only reason I did this was I did a search for true crime news over the last week, and this stuff popped up. I have to say they're doing it more for the entertainment value. I know that it has to be entertaining in quotation marks. I know that. If they would do something like just reading from the Encyclopedia Britannica, nobody's going to watch it. I get that. I get it. I've been in entertainment. I know. But having people like the Kardashians and then Piers Morgan and a couple of these other people who are going to be hosting these other shows on Oxygen, it's going too far. The shows then just become not credible. And really what they're doing is the Kardashians, the other people, are trying to raise their profile off the pain of others. That's all that's going on here. It's all that's going on. And it's unfortunate. To me, I have it written in my notes here, it dirties the entire community. It just does. And that's why I continue to say I've been approached, as you know, I've talked about it a couple times, about doing programs. And I've told both of these TV producers, if you're not going to do this seriously, if you're not going to approach this topic the way these families feel it, the way what really goes on out in the missing persons community, people getting blown off, cops not following up on leads, the pain, and all those things that go along with it. We talked about earlier, people getting frustrated, and kind of quitting. If we're not going to talk about that, whether in a nonfiction or fiction setting, I'm not interested. I'm just not. Because I think that I'm a good person, and the way you see me on this program is the way I'm off camera. In fact, Dana, who's in here, a disc golfs with me. I've known him for about 5 years. He will testify. The person you see here is the guy I am in person, in public, everywhere else, in private, everywhere. And I'm not going to compromise on that. Frankly, for a couple, dollars here and there. Just not. So, and I know that may get in the way of some of these things getting done, and that's just the way it goes. But I would, if they were, Ed, I'd like you to be a contributor to a program in which Khloe Kardashian is going to be the spokesman and a producer and everything, I would have to say no. They could not throw enough money at me to make me say yes. Ever. So it's just bad. I realize they need people to get ratings and everything. It's going too far. I get Robert Stack, well-known actor back in the 80s, him doing the program. Even with Dennis Farina, does fairly serious things. I get it. You start going to Piers Morgan, Khloe Kardashian, these reality show people, I'm just over it. So that's enough of my diatribe on that. Let's go to this week's case. Thank you, Kimber, for being patient. This is the disappearance of Mikelle Biggs. She disappeared on January 2nd, 1999. She was 11 years old. And my interview is going to be with Kimber. You see her in the group tonight. Kimber is her younger sister. Kimber was 9 at the time of her sister's disappearance. Mikelle was 11. Kimber was 9. They were out playing together. In fact, Mikelle was riding Kimber's bike. We talk about that in the interview. And Kimber got a little frustrated. She went inside. She now thinks to this day, the police back at the time kind of tried to calculate it. She was gone no more than 90 seconds. When she came back out of her house and looked down the street, about 3 houses down to this intersection, I put a picture of it up today. The bike was laying near the curb, not on the curb, but not in the middle of the street either. And Mikelle was gone. And she has never been seen again. This happened in Mesa, Arizona. I am familiar with this area. When I used to go down to Arizona for the work that I did while I lived in Las Vegas, I've been to Mesa, Arizona many times, although I'm not sure near this intersection, but I'm familiar with the area. Kimber, in her interview, will describe the community and all the kids that were playing together and everything. You're going to hear, of course, we're going to cover everything you've already read probably about the case. If you heard it, and to my knowledge, Mikelle's case is at least a little bit known. That's my perception even before I got involved. I think that Kimber and her family have done a decent job. I know she talks about her family was on 2020 back in 2010. I think it's a little bit of a well-known case, at least that's my perception, but we're going to talk probably about some things that you aren't going to read anywhere, as usual, things you aren't going to hear anywhere. And the most important part about this, as I've already said, is not only is Kimber, Mikelle's younger sister, my guest, but she was the last person to see Mikelle. And that might, I know we've run into that situation before on Unfound, but it doesn't happen too often. And so Kimber's going to be able to give you, she's going to take you back to January. She's going to take you back to January 2nd, 1999. Remember where I was. I was working for 7-Eleven at the time and hating it. But she's going to take you back to that time. You're going to think about what you were doing that day right after New Year's. And we're going to go through the facts. We're going to talk about a suspect, Dee Blaylock, but we're also going to talk about how there is a sketch, at least a couple sketches. One, I guess, kind of looks like him, but there is another sketch of a person of interest doesn't look anything like Dee Blaylock. And in fact, I have to tell you, I am open to the idea that Dee Blaylock, and you're going to hear why we go through it in the interview, why he was considered a suspect later, not right at the time, but later. So Kim says, I missed the beginning. Who is this man speaking? This is the host of Unfound. Thanks for joining. Kimber says, I've had all over the UK and Australia, Canada who knew about it back then. So crazy. Yes, Kimber, and I think I remember that. So, and what you're also going to hear about, and Kimber doesn't know that she's going to find out this right now, but the title of this episode is going to be called Taking the Reins. Because Kimber and I also talk a little bit about that towards the end of our interview, how she was only 9 at the time, really didn't understand everything that was going on, even though she was the last person to see her sister. It was the adults who were taking care of it. The police show up, the parents going through all these houses. But all these years later, she is now the one who is heading up this search for her sister. And her parents have kind of not totally gotten out of it, but they've taken a back seat. Kimber is now in her late 20s, and now she is leading this effort, and we talk a little bit about that. And, it's also appropriate because even if we don't have a disappearance in our family, all of us who had parents who lived a long time, and of course my parents are still alive. My biological mother died, of course, a couple weeks ago, but my parents are still alive. We realize as we get older that we do take over the reins. Your parents, things happen, and then you have to start making decisions for them about, what kind of care they're going to get. And unfortunately, if it gets really, really bad, you have to decide whether, if they're on life support, whether to pull the plug or not. we are children, and then we become, and we have our parents, and then we become the parents. And our parents, if they can't make these decisions and things anymore, they kind of become our children. It's totally flipped around, and we take the reins over the family. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about. That's going to be the introduction to Friday's program. You're going to hear about how a girl who was 9 years old when this happened in 1999, all these years later, is now leading her family and trying to figure out what happened to her sister, Mikelle. That would be Friday's program. And once again, that happened on January 2nd, 1999. So, man, we've gone 55 minutes. I can't tell you how fast this time flies. Oh, one more question. Shannon asked me, I have to get to this. We just still got a couple minutes. So there, Shannon in the group asked me about DNA phenotyping. Shannon, real quickly, I'm sorry it took me so long to get to this, if you're in here. I'm not a big believer. Right now, DNA phenotyping seems a little too magical to me right now. I don't know if it's really solved any cases. I, of course, believe in regular DNA, but being able to tell what a person looks like and everything else just from some DNA, it seems a little bit like witchcraft right now. I'm willing to change my mind anytime, but right now, can't say that I'm fully a believer in it yet. Maybe I will get there one day. I just don't know if we're there technologically right now. So I had to answer that question before we go. But once again, this Friday's episode, the disappearance of Mikelle Biggs, we're calling it Taking the Reins. So I told you on Saturday I'm going to be a little busy with a disc golf tournament. I told you about New York Missing Persons Day. I think Unfound got mentioned. I thanked Fran Masucci for the work she's doing for Unfound. I thanked my assistant Emily for all of the work she's done because we're like on the year anniversary now. Took care of business with the books, the shirts, the cards, Patreon, and PayPal. Would appreciate if you could support the program. We talked about Buckskin Girl, how she's been finally identified 37 years later. We talked about the Kardashians, unfortunately getting into true crime, and the Oxygen Network, I think, becoming a true crime show through True Crime Channel. Answered everybody's questions, I think, for the most part. If I missed one, please email me, message me, and I will answer for you offline. And then we talked about this week's case, the disappearance of Mikelle Biggs, and my interview will be her sister, Kimber Biggs. As I always say at the end of every program, this is my favorite time of the week when I get to talk to all of you. I love the interaction. And I have to tell you something. Do any other podcast hosts even do something like that? I'm sure at least somebody out there does it, but anybody in true crime every week? I don't know. It seems to me maybe I'm one of the only ones. But I love doing it. Lisa's at my podcast, 2 p.m. Eastern on Friday, Lisa. Yes, 2 p.m. Friday. I will post a link in the group, on the page, everywhere else. You will surely be able to listen to it right away. 2 p.m. Eastern on Friday. But I got to go. It's my favorite time of the week. I love talking to all of you. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you all have a great night, a great Thursday. And then you will hear me and Kimber on Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern, for Unfound, a Missing Persons program. Good night, everyone. Thanks for joining in.